Now in its 10th year, this is Gabnet. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Hey, hey everybody, this is Alex, and this of course is the Ramble, and we go until midnight tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, he joins us every week, and he's been doing. I think I checked it out. What did I say? 230 of these that we've done.
I thought 240, something
240,
like that.
some kind. We've been doing this a lot.
We're logging in more hours than Hugh Downs. Remember, didn't he have the record for the most airtime on TV for?
Was it Hugh Downs?
For a long time, yeah. I think I think Regis Philbin may have passed him.
It could have been Hugh Downs at one point, because he did the Today Show, and that was on every day. And then he went on and did a few other things, but I don't know that Hugh Downs maintained that for very long. I think probably Regis did more time on television than anybody. I can't think of anybody else. But we just had Pat Sajak retire after 41 years of Wheel of Fortune.
Wow.
I'm surprised that man isn't brain dead. Can you imagine going in and doing the same show day in and day out?
Well, he probably, what do they tape, 5 in a day?
He did, he did 5 a day. They would do a week of them so that you would actually have 5 weeks of programming. And he only did about 25 weeks, so they only had to work. That's one of the best jobs ever if you don't don't let it rot your brain, because you record many times. They would take a whole month, record the whole year, and then he was off for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
got all his money for doing the show, I'm going to tell you about somebody that I read about that he was griping and complaining. He's getting rid of his agents because his agents signed him for a 3-year contract at HBO, another 3 years renewal of 3 years, and that was John Oliver, and he got he got rid of his agents because he felt they made a bad deal. They signed him up for 3 years without a raise. Now that would make you mad, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you know what he's getting already? $1 million an episode.
He doesn't need a raise.
So he does 30 shows a year.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. So he walks away with $30 million every year. And he's firing his agents because they didn't get him a raise? I mean, a raise to what?
God.
So I feel a little less enamored of John Oliver because of that crybaby attitude,
He's always complaining about greedy rich people, too, isn't he?
Yes. And he is a rich person. He's very wealthy, I mean, come on. I mean, I don't know how much Bill Maher makes. I imagine he probably makes somewhat the same. I would imagine they're on par with each other.
Well, I read I should have kept this book. I had a book that had the highest paid people in TV, and there was, when I was a kid, I remember him, a guy named Gary Moore, apparently was the highest paid person in television.
At that time, I think he was surpassed by any of the cast members of Seinfeld during their last 4 or 5 years.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, they all made $1 million a year, an episode, which gave him $22 million a year. That's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
And then Jerry owned part of the show, as did Larry David.
Well, that's where the real money is.
Because they created it. He walked away after somebody bought them out for, I think, $500 million.
I thought it was 800 million.
It was at 800 million. Well, but
Yeah.
no, but I think it was 500 million for Jerry, 500 million for Larry.
Mm-hmm.
And then Larry got divorced, so he had to give some of that up. And I think Jerry now has close to $1 billion because he invested it, did all wise things with it. Then he did comedians in cars getting coffee, which is, you know.
I think he was getting 30 million a year for that.
Yeah. So I mean, he's a billionaire. Okay.
He's a money machine.
Yeah. So when you talk about rich guys in television, I would say that Larry David and also Larry David then did Curb Your Enthusiasm, and that was after the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So he got all the money from that, and I think he's a billionaire now too.
Mm-hmm.
Can you feel sorry for a comedian who makes $1 billion?
No.
No, I don't think so. You know. Who was the highest paid comedian when you were coming up? Do you remember?
The highest paid comedian was
Pryor, maybe, or Carlin?
Steve Martin. He
Steve
wasn't around
Martin.
that long.
Steve Martin, though, while he was going strong, made a, shall we say this, a shitload of money. You know, he was. In fact, to this day, I think he remains the most successful comedian of all time.
I don't think I recall any comic creating that kind of excitement. Like, he was like a rock star.
He was a rock star.
Yeah.
I went to one of his concerts at the Nassau Coliseum. That place holds like 30,000, 40,000 people. And he's doing comedy. And it's one of the reasons he quit doing stand-up. It was because he said, you know, once you get to that level, it's not fun anymore. You know, you're just going out there and talking to this just blanket of people, and it doesn't have the feeling that you're doing stand-up any longer. You know, so he after I think it was after maybe 3-4 years of doing stand-up, he quit. And he said, you know, you go in, and you can relate to this. You go in, you've got your set. You've got the stuff you created. You go on stage, and you do it. And you can do it in this town. You can do it this town, that town. You don't have to reinvent yourself. Okay? Because I bet you've got jokes in your act right now that you did when you first started doing comedy.
Close, yeah.
Yeah, close. He said, by the time I got to my third hour of material, that was the time to quit comedy. He said, I couldn't come up with any more. You know, it was time to move on to other stuff.
Yeah, he said that about comics that write a new hour every year. He says that's kind of a folly, that nobody has more than 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, and he felt he only had 3 hours. 3 good hours. I mean, where he
good for him, yeah.
Yeah, you know. I mean, how many hours have you had in your lifetime as a comedian?
I might have an hour and a half, I would think. Maybe hour 45 if I could put it all together.
But that's largely the ability of being and the benefits of being a lesser known comic. Is you're not being forced to come up with absolutely new material.
Yeah, if you're doing a special, then you do that, then
you blow everything you've got. You've blown your whole act. You do one Netflix special, you know.
That's it.
Speaking of Netflix specials, you went down and did the Netflix, what do they call it? Comedy is not funny or something?
Netflix is a joke festival, yeah.
Yeah, Netflix is a joke festival.
Which has become a huge, huge festival.
Well, they were doing some TV shows, doing some Netflix shows out of there with John Mulaney, which were really terrible, by the way. I don't know if you saw any of them. Well,
I haven't seen him, but someone tells me he fills arenas. So.
He fills arenas, and he's a very funny guy, but, you know, I think he wasn't funny on these shows he did for Netflix. It was very, very labored. But anyway, so you went down there for the Netflix is a joke festival because Esparza, what's his first name?
Felipe
Esparza invited you to what? Open for him? Is that it?
No, he wanted to put something a little different together. He called it Sideshow, and he had 3 comics and 3 circus performers.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's
So I was between a contortionist and a sword swallower.
Well, do you remember when I did the thing at the Frost Amphitheater? I brought in variety acts as well.
Yeah, that was fun.
I had a guy with falcons or something that flew over the audience.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, because, again, I came up with the theory about the problem with comedy shows was that you put up a comedian, followed by a comedian, followed by a comedian, followed by a comedian.
Then after a while, it starts to look like an open mic.
Yeah, well, the thing is that in the days of vaudeville, the wonderful thing about vaudeville was that you had a variety of acts.
Yeah.
And so if you were sitting there watching one of those shows, burlesque, I think they called it at that time, you could be watching an act you didn't like that much, but you knew that 10 minutes later there would be another act on that you would maybe thoroughly enjoy. And there were like jugglers, followed by comedians, followed by singers, followed by, and to me, the variety of that was priceless. But today, one comedian
pretty much what the Ed Sullivan Show was.
Exactly. One comedian follows another comedian, follows another comedian, and after a while you go, now wait a minute, in what other business do you do that, And you're right, Ed Sullivan was successful because he had the vaudeville, burlesque was a term I used, which is wrong, it was called vaudeville.
Vaudeville.
You
yes.
had
have a ventriloquist, Senior Wenches.
Yeah, Topo Gigio, and Edie Gourmet singing a song, and then the Beatles.
And then the Beatles, and then who was wasn't there a comedian that had to follow the Beatles on one of those shows?
I'm trying to remember who it was, but yeah. Well, I was told, and I don't know if this is true, that all the Beatles segments in the Ed Sullivan Show were pre-recorded because they didn't feel that they could have a bunch of kids screaming and then bring on, Alan and Rossi. Okay, because
that would make sense.
The kids would sit there on their hands waiting for the Beatles to come back because Sullivan was smart. He opened with the Beatles and he closed with the Beatles.
Yeah.
And I was told those were pre-recorded because they just didn't. Then they could turn the audience over and get a more adult audience in there who would then watch Topo Gigio. Because that was the only way to do it. I don't think you could do it any other way. They wouldn't stop screaming.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that show probably had like a Super Bowl rating.
It was huge. I mean, they did what? They do 4 shows for Sullivan, I think. Yeah, I think so. And then they went to a format which nobody else did. They pre-recorded their music. They filmed it. They turned out music videos. People say, where did the music videos start? And I said, it had to have been the Beatles. Because that's the first time I remember any artist pre-recording their music on film and doing kind of a, bringing in a filmmaker or somebody to give it a certain feel to it or whatever, certain special quality to it. And so the Beatles that was their thing. And they would then send Ed or Jack Parr or anybody a film and say, here, we'll be on your show next week, but you got to take the film. So that's what happened there. God,
I wonder how Ed Sullivan found out about the Beatles. It seems like
he give Ed a lot of credit. He put his ear to the ground.
Well, that's right. He did have Elvis back in the prehistoric era.
He was always on top of everything, And it wasn't that he was a hip guy or anything. He just knew that he had to keep fresh and new. And hey, I got to have Elvis Presley on. That's what the kids are listening to now, you know. And I'm not going to lose an audience because Topo Gigio goes on right after him, you know. So Topo Gigio, by the way, in case people don't remember, was an Italian puppet back in the day. So yeah, Topo Gigio. Yes, Ed. Hello, Ed. I seem to remember that voice.
You know, Ed he used Dangerfield quite a bit on his show.
Yeah, I mean, he loved good comedians, you know. Hell, you might have even wound up on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Well, I wound up on his stage.
You
anyway.
wound up on his stage. Did you feel when you did Letterman at the Ed Sullivan Theater, did you feel any sense of history when you were there?
Oh, that's the first thing I felt was I think all the famous people had been on that stage, the Beatles, Elvis, and yeah.
Yeah, and you go back and you look at old Ed Sullivan shows when he said, and out in our audience tonight, you know, so-and-so, and you see the theater itself with the audience, it's the same side walls, everything. It's literally the theater we got used to with David Letterman.
Yeah.
That was the best thing David Letterman ever did, was deciding to use that theater because it became so historic, and he became a part of Broadway.
Yeah.
You know, big little sign there, David Letterman, you know, big theater. It was great. It was terrific. But they also did a lot of other shows out of there. They did, like, The Price is Right. I don't know. They did game shows out of there for years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, once Sullivan either quit doing his show or died, they started using that theater for other CBS shows. So if it was some kind of game show, that game show would come out of there. So, you know, but when David took it over, it supposedly was a mess. There was 6 inches of standing water inside the theater and everything. They just really had to do a quick fix on that place. So you got to work that theater. You know, a theater I worked that made me I suddenly felt I had made it, and I don't know why, because I wasn't a performer particularly, but I had to call my mother from backstage and say, "Ma, guess where I am?" And I'm about to go on stage. And she said, "Where?" And when I told her, she almost became apoplectic. And the words that came out of my mouth, of course, was Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
I was I still have a poster from it, a picture of the poster of the front of the theater. It was an evening with Stan Lee, and it was a Marvel night at Carnegie Hall. And Stan asked me to read a part. They were doing readings of comic books. And he asked me to play one of the characters. It was one of the characters in the Fantastic Four, or one of the evil guy in the Fantastic Four. I can't remember his name now. See, folks, that's how much I care about comic books.
Well, that was the theater that everyone dreamed about. How do you get to Carnegie Hall?
And the answer was, of course, practice.
Practice. But that was Carnegie Hall was the epitome, I think.
Yeah, well, what it was, the thing about Carnegie Hall, most people didn't realize, is anybody could play Carnegie Hall. Why do you say that, Alex? Because you rented Carnegie Hall.
You rented it out.
They didn't go out and get acts to play Carnegie Hall. Acts went to Carnegie Hall and said, "We want to rent the place for a night." And I remember they would even have people like, there was a woman, they made a movie about it with Meryl Streep, called Florence Foster Jenkins. Florence Foster Jenkins was a great patron of the arts. She also thought she could sing, and she would try and sing opera, and she was just horrible. She was just terrible. And she would go out and rent out Carnegie Hall, and all her friends who wanted to make her feel good would buy tickets.
Jesus.
And she would sell out Carnegie Hall. And then she would do this concert with her accompanist, whose name was, are you ready for this? And I found out it really was his name, Cosmo McMoon. And she would give her little concerts, and then everybody would applaud and say, "Oh, wonderful, Florence," whatever, maybe even a standing ovation. And then they'd wait till next year when she did it again. And they loved her so much, nobody wanted to tell the singer, "You really stink."
So she had no idea she sucked.
Yeah, I used to have a recording that was made of Florence Foster Jenkins at Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
It was on RCA. And it was a best-selling album because people all wanted an album of this woman who absolutely couldn't sing. But it was, they made a movie of it called Florence Foster Jenkins with Meryl Streep as Florence Foster Jenkins, and also the guy from Big Bang Theory played her pianist, Cosmo McMoon.
And that's a great name.
It's a great little movie. It's a beautiful story because just somebody who so loved music, she wanted to be able to sing it. There was nothing horrible about her. The only thing horrible about her was how badly and horribly she sang. But nobody would make fun of her. Nobody would make fun of her. So.
And do you remember how big a theater that was?
I would like to think, if I remember it, maybe it had 1,000 to a couple of thousand seats.
Okay.
I would think it was not a huge theater by theater standards. It's still there, you can still rent out Carnegie Hall. And call your mother and say, "Mom, guess where I am?"
We could rent it out and do a Bennett Presents.
Yeah, I don't know if I could afford it, to be honest with you.
I wonder what it costs.
Jeez, I don't know what it costs to rent car. I should look it up someday.
Yeah.
Probably has a standard price. Also, it may depend on what you want to do in there, too. If you just want to do stand-up acts, probably cheaper than if you wanted to run a symphony orchestra out of there or something like that. And supposedly the acoustics, I don't remember them myself, but the acoustics in the old Carnegie Hall were wonderful, supposedly terrific. Singers loved it. Sinatra did concerts there. Judy Garland did concerts there. And it was just, but the name Carnegie Hall, in fact, there was even a movie called Carnegie Hall. The name Carnegie Hall just became this, this special thing in show business. And, and they, of course, prompted that old joke about the guy in New York walking down the street. It says, "How do you get to Carnegie Hall?" And the guy says, "Practice."
Yeah, I didn't know anybody could rent it out.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Everybody always thought it was this wonderful place. You had to really work in show business to finally play Carnegie Hall. No, you had to work enough in show business so you could afford to rent out Carnegie Hall. And everybody wanted to play there. It was just an icon of showmanship. So anyway, that's, little. Did I ruin?
It looks good on the resume.
Did I ruin something for somebody out there who thought that Carnegie Hall was this wonderful place? So anyway, the comedy festival went. You went on?
Went on. That was fun. And one show.
How'd you go over?
Good. It was I think following a contortionist, they were ready for something.
Yeah, but when you went on and you did your act and you walked off, did you feel, hey, I did pretty well?
Yeah, I thought I did well. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're kind of blasé about it, but I mean, how do you define good to you? It must be a pretty high standard.
I got laughs. I was happy with it. I wasn't. I usually come off. If I don't do well, I'm really pissed off. So I was in a good mood.
Yeah, but they didn't film you or do anything like that.
No.
The Netflix festival.
And again, that was another stage that was called the Avalon Theater, which used to be the Hollywood Palace, which had a TV show called the Hollywood Palace.
Right.
In the '60s.
Yeah. But anyway.
And they had a girl come out with a card that introduced the acts, and the girl on TV was her first job was Raquel Welch.
Oh, boy, now that's trivia.
Yeah.
I saw an opening for what show? We're running a little bit out of time here, but I'm trying to remember some show that I was watching, an old show. The old Frank Sinatra show or some of the Edsel show. And they had a bunch of women, you know, kind of at the beginning going, you know, it's Frank Sinatra's, blah, blah, blah. The Edsel show, blah, blah, blah. And one of the women, I swear, is Mary Tyler Moore. You know?
Wow.
I used to have a record album where Mary Tyler Moore was on the cover wearing a bathing suit. This is what she did in the early days. Yeah. Anyway, hey, listen, we've run out of time here. God, I have fun.
It just flew by.
I have fun with you. It's flown by for 242 episodes.
Let's do another 240.
Okay. I hope I live long enough.
Yeah, me and you both.
Talk to you next week, my
Okay,
friend.
Alex.
That's Larry Bubbles Brown, folks.
Now in its 10th year, this is GabNet. Talk like you've never heard it before.
And thanks to Larry Bubbles Brown, ladies and gentlemen, a guy who we think is just the best. Okay? Let me admit some people here. Let me see here. Here we go. There we go. Charlie Wallace, and let me see here. Who else have we got? There's our good friend Josh Wheeler. And Vernon Nunn is joining us, by the way, from Kentucky. But we have to wait for him to, you know, sign in. There we go. It looks like it's happening. Okay. Hi, everybody. How you doing this evening?
Very good.
You doing okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if you can tell the difference, but I have a new microphone. And
sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What it does is it has a lot more volume to it. So I'm able to, like, you know.
So now when you yell at Alan, he'll be able to hear you even more clearly.
That's correct, you know. But this is like a $300 mic I went out and bought. I just felt after all these years, I don't care about my microphone particularly. Some guys are very, very particular about it. Like Howard Stern has a certain kind of microphone he uses and a kind of a way in which he sets the sound on it and so on, and so particular about it. I never cared. Microphone was something I talked into, and how good or bad it sounded was more dependent on my voice than anything else, you know. But I decided, what the hell, you know, I may as well, before I shuffle off this mortal coil, get myself a decent microphone. Plus, this is very, very directional, and like, for instance, I have a fan on here on the air conditioning. You can't hear it, right? You know, because if I move to the other side of the microphone here, you can barely hear me. See, so it's exactly the kind of microphone I've needed for this. Hello to Josh. Hello to Charlie. Hello to Vernon, and hello to Tom Yamaguchi. What, 2 times this week so far?
Mm-hmm.
See?
Yeah, I decided I'll call when I actually have something to say.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes I get a chance to say it before the hour's ended.
Yeah, but before Alan gets here.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Well, obviously you had something to talk about, so why don't you...
I do. Would you like an obituary?
Well, I don't like an obituary.
Well, would you like somebody else's obituary?
Absolutely, I would like... Well, it's not that I would like it. You know, I can't like an obituary.
Well, he was pretty old. You know who I'm talking about.
What's his name?
What's his name, right? Yeah. Donald Sutherland.
Donald Sutherland, yeah.
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 So the reason, of course, everybody's reporting that story. But the one thing, and I've mentioned this before, that of course, Donald Sutherland was married 3 times.
Yeah.
His second wife was a woman named Shirley Douglas. And Shirley Douglas was the daughter of a man in Saskatchewan, Canada. He was the premier of Saskatchewan.
Well,
His name was
Sutherland was born.
Tommy Douglas. And
Yep.
what did Tommy Douglas do for us? Or at least what he did for Canada, gave it single payer health care.
Really?
Yes, he is he was a socialist, and he created single payer health care for Canada.
That's incredible. That's great. You see,
Yeah.
you mentioned Donald Sutherland, Canada. The reason Canada is so prominent in his life is he was born there. He was raised there. He was a
born in
Canadian.
Canada.
He was one of those actors who came down here and stole jobs from a good American actors, you know.
Yeah. And we had two children with Shirley Douglas, and one of them was Kiefer Sutherland.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually looked this up at DVD because I saw the movie, but I forgot when it was made. It was 2011. He narrated a documentary called The Healthcare Movie, where he actually talks about, or the movie actually talks about the Canadian system of healthcare.
Oh, really?
And they start with CBC in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
They had a contest to find out who was the greatest Canadian history. And the winner was Tommy Douglas.
Wow.
So, yeah, I recommend the movie. Basically, what they do is they dispel a lot of the myths about the Canadian healthcare system.
Yeah.
Like there's long there's long wait periods to get anything. They're not getting good service, blah blah blah, and everybody up in Canada just loves it. And you interview people.
I've never heard.
I maybe like the surgeries, have to wait a while, but I get what I need.
I've known some Canadians, and none of them ever complain about the health service. None of them. They all say it's terrific. There
They live 3 years longer than us.
What?
Canadians on average live 3 fucking years longer than Americans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's how good their healthcare system is, and how bad ours is.
Yeah, well, our health system isn't that great. You know whose health system is better than ours? Cuba.
Everybody.
Cuba.
Yeah.
Again, they have, what do you call it? Health. Boy, my mind these days is just single payer health plan. So, I hate to mention this again because I mentioned this the last couple of nights, but you probably weren't maybe listening last night when I announced that Christy Frazier has died. Remember Christy?
Yeah, that was the night before.
Night before, so you were here for that.
I called in.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
I just want to make
yes.
sure you knew that. People.
Oh yeah.
People who
As I
listen.
said then, I used to be in the studio audience,
Yeah.
and yeah, she was just wonderful.
Yeah.
I tell you, it was one time. Remember the show you did on an excursion boat that went out under the Golden Gate Bridge?
Oh yeah, I hated that. I hated that. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than being on a boat with fans.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway,
I enjoyed the show, and among the people was Will Durst. Yeah, I remember Will Durst on that show.
Yeah.
But my ex was very pregnant at the time with our second, and we had just gotten off BART, and we were running to catch the boat. And Christie's, no, take your time. She thought that my ex was going to give birth right there. We were running to catch the boat, but we made the boat, and it was a live radio broadcast, and we were right underneath the Golden Gate Bridge and back. It was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you hated it, but I loved it.
I know that most of these people here who, when I mention Christy, they don't know who she is because, they have lived in other states over the years and know me from other places than San Francisco. But in fact, Tom was with me when I was inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame.
Radio Hall of Fame.
Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame.
That's
yeah.
right down the street from me, the marina in Berkeley.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 So
Renee was there, and Will with his Freedom underwear, and yeah.
yes. By the way, we have Jeff with us tonight, but he's doing his Kilroy was here impression.
Hey guys.
No, but you know when I say that, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right, Jeffrey? And Charlie, you know what I'm talking about when I say Kilroy was here? I don't know where that whole thing started. But all I know is that when I was a kid, everywhere you went was this Kilroy was here kind of, it was a guy with his nose hanging over a wall or something, you know. And that's what Jeff looks like when he first comes on, and, you know. But now he's okay. Oh, your wife's agreeing with you, right? Yeah.
No. My son's over here, and his friend
Yeah.
Pam,
Yeah.
and I gotta talk to him anytime.
Hello to Brian. Hello, Bri.
Hello.
How
are you?
Hi. How are you? Yeah.
Brian, do you remember Christy?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
actually, I mentioned you on the show the other day because I said, like Tom said, she was always very nice. Always very nice to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. What?
She was very pretty. So.
Where are all those
Very nice
voices
person,
coming
but
from?
everybody in the show.
Jeff.
Where are the voices coming from?
Here?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably Pam.
Can you mute?
Yeah, I'm gonna see
Oh,
if I
shut
can.
up.
Do you know how to mute your phone
He did.
or your
Yeah, no, I
computer?
mentioned you, Tom, because you said that she was really nice to the studio audience all the time. I only been there a few times, but she was really nice there.
Yeah, she was really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice.
But anyway, so that's kind of sad. But
Very.
anyway, I got something I wanted to talk about tonight. I really was going to talk about it last night, and then I don't know. We just got on a whole bunch of other stuff, and I didn't get into it. But you do know about is it Texas where they? Oh no, Louisiana.
Louisiana, yeah.
Where they have said that they've made a bill, and they literally made it a law, that every classroom in the state of Louisiana, even in college, have to have a copy of the Ten Commandments on the wall. And the governor said, well, you know, the Ten Commandments everybody should know because basically they're the basis for a lot of the law that we have. And I went back and because I'm not the most religious guy in the world, and I thought I would check out the Ten Commandments. Josh, I know that you know the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights, but can you tell us the Ten Commandments?
If I think about it slowly, I could probably name them, perhaps.
Well, there's probably one or two you'd miss.
Maybe.
I would.
I was forced into an undergraduate education at a Christian college, so.
Well, the thing I always thought was
I came from a home that I've been around it a lot in my life.
the thing I always thought was kind of weird and diametrically opposed in the Ten Commandments is that about a half of them are negative morality, and half of them are positive morality. In other words, you start off with "Thou shalt not." Okay, and you get around to "thou shalt" towards the end. But I'm looking at these and I'm thinking, well, if indeed this was what basic laws are based on and so on, and I wouldn't argue it, but the fact is, it is terribly religious. It's not just, I thought maybe it's a little bit off the beaten path religious, but you start off and you've got "thou shalt have no other gods before me." Well, I'm telling you right now, we're right off the bat going into religion. What are you saying? You wanted to say something, Charlie?
Yeah. all of the Catholic Ten Commandments are negative. There are no positive Ten Commandments in the Catholic Church.
Wait a minute, did they change them?
Our Ten Commandments were not completely, but very different from the Ten Commandments that the Protestants have.
Really?
So I don't know which ones he wants in the schools, but I assume it's not the Catholic ones.
Well,
I've got a Catholic Bible. I could check. Hold on.
yeah.
I like the condensed version that that George Carlin put out.
Yeah.
The condensed version?
And
Yeah,
at the end,
watch it on YouTube sometime. George Carlin says you can take the Ten Commandments and combine the ones that are duplications and say, okay, well, if you just change a few words here and there, now boom, now you're down to 5. And he gets it down to like 2 commandments. Don't kill anybody and be nice to people.
Well, I mean, basically, you should have only one commandment: don't do anything to hurt anybody else. You know.
I agree.
But
So
anyway,
this is what's it called? The New Catholic edition of the Holy Bible is dedicated to Saint Joseph. And right there on the front, it says, 1, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt not have strange gods before me.
okay, that's
2,
close. That's close to the one. Now
thou
give us.
shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain.
Okay, well, wait a minute. Look, hold on a second. That one is number 3 on this list
That's
that I
what I'm
have.
saying.
Here.
They're different.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you said that they were all negative.
Well,
they are. Which one's
this is
positive?
from the Church of Latter-day Saints, okay, the Mormons. So number 2 is thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image.
See, that's not a Catholic Ten Commandments. We didn't have anything about that.
See, graven
Ooh,
image is
so-
anything that you
So
love
this is,
more than
this is
God.
interesting. This is interesting. I never realized this before. So basically, what the Louisiana state is doing is they specified the font, the readability, and all, but they do say whose Ten
Right.
Commandments. I've never heard that anybody bring that up in all the discussions I've been hearing.
Well,
They say which
Who's
ones
Ten
they
Commandments?
quote.
And they're always arguing about, well, what about, the Hindu books or the Muslim books or whatever? But within each religions, everybody has their own different version of the Ten Commandments.
But
So
the
if I'm a
Louisiana-
Catholic and I say, hey, why isn't my version of the Ten Commandments up there on the wall?
That's what I was saying.
See, I always
Oh,
thought
well,
I
thanks,
always
Charlie.
this how
Thanks
stupid
for bringing that out.
this
Great.
is how stupid I am. I actually believed that there was only one 10 Commandments, and I pretty well thought that was the one that was in the Cecil B. DeMille movie,
I
But
bring you these 15. Oops.
okay, well, the
and
second
the-
one here, according to the Mormons, is thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. That means cars, clothes, sports, even our jobs are dangerous things to worship. Okay, so a graven image is anything you want to worship beside God. I up until now, I haven't known what a graven image was.
But the
Nor have I
Louisiana law-
cared actually. What?
Louisiana law quotes specific Ten Commandments. It says word for word what each commandment is, and it's not the Catholic Ten Commandments.
Well,
Yeah.
first of all, next it says, "Thou shalt not take the name of thy Lord in vain," or God in vain.
Yeah.
That would mean you can't go, "God damn it,"
Yeah, that's number 2 here
That's number
Yep.
2.
in
Okay.
the Catholic Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, number 2.
Number 4 is remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. So far
number
we
3.
have 4 very selfish and egotistical commandments made by God.
Mhm.
You're going to love me. You're going to think I'm great. You're not going to take any graven images. And not going to take my name in vain. You're going to do the Sabbath day and keep it holy. It isn't until you get to the 5th commandment that you maybe get something you can't argue about. Honor thy father and thy mother. Of course, unless they were brutal parents who beat the crap out of you, then are you
And
supposed
that's
to?
number 4.
Huh?
That's number 4 of the Catholics.
What with number 4 with the Catholics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So what don't they have that I've
You have the
mentioned? So
graven
far?
image one.
The graven image, yeah.
They don't have the
Right.
graven image thing?
They say, I am the Lord, the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange God before me,
So
which
it
might be Catholics.
That's
Let's consider graven images part of that. You know, it's
Okay.
like I don't know.
Honor thy father and thy mother is number 5. We should have. I wish we had. I wish we had David Letterman reading these off as the top 10 commandments.
Well, then we'd have to read 10 first. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thou
And
shalt.
number 9.
Wait a minute. Thou shalt not kill. That's okay. That you could put up on the wall. I wouldn't be bothered with that. I don't think any of us would. But thou shalt not commit adultery.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Uh-huh. I don't know how well, there's one I've kind of blown to bits.
Donald Trump too.
Well, thou shalt not steal. See, these are good. These get to 5 and below, they start getting okay. They good moral precepts to live by. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor.
Trump.
Well, wait a minute. I'm going to get to that in a minute here. But this one is about honesty. If you lie to someone, you are bearing false witness and may cause harm to yourself and others. This is the translation by the Mormons, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And finally, thou shalt not covet. Actually, I've also heard it as you shall not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Right. The Catholics have 2. So 9 is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, and 10 thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods.
Well, don't goods and wives
So
come
wife
under
is
the
a
same
little step up.
category?
Wife is a step up of the other possessions man has, obviously.
Yeah.
In
Well-
other words, we shouldn't covet Brian's McLaren.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or his caddy.
But let's go back now to the very top here. Well, in fact, let me 10 Commandments in Louisiana. Let's see if they have anything on this.
You know what it doesn't specify in the law is what language to put it in. They ought to put it in Arabic. In all these.
Well, let's see, 10 Commandments. Oh, Louisiana. Okay. Do they have it? Let me see. Louisiana's 10 Commandments law. 10 Commandments law raises new concerns. I wish it doesn't list what the 10 Commandments are. Anyway, getting back to this, if we go back and we go to the 10 Commandments, most of them have been broken by Donald Trump.
If not all.
If not all. Well, thou shalt not have any other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain. I'm sure he's done that. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Yeah, like when's the last time he went to church? Mm-hmm. Okay. Honor thy mother and father. Yeah. Thou shalt not kill. Well, he hasn't done that yet, that we know of. Yeah.
He's threatened to, though.
Well, actually, when you think of all the people that died of COVID, based on his incompetence, he certainly did kill. He killed tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people needlessly.
Yeah. 1.2 million.
Okay. Yeah.
Thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, you know. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. That means that
30,000 documented lies during his 4 years.
Exactly. And thou shalt not covet. He is jealous because our president is currently in the White House instead of him. I mean, he breaks most of these things. So if they're on a wall in Louisiana, what is this? It should be have instead of the Ten Commandments at the top, it said, "Don't be like Donald Trump," and here's why. But it is a good question. Which Ten Commandments? I didn't realize that. It's a very good point.
Well, when I was a kid, Alex, we used to. You probably remember too. Remember when they'd open the school day with a prayer?
Oh,
Pledge of
well,
Allegiance and a prayer?
that bothered me because
It's
I
like,
lived.
yeah, I mean, I can imagine it could be being Jewish, but even me growing up then as a Catholic, the Lord's Prayer, the Protestant version, is actually different. It's actually longer.
It is.
There's a part where they go, "And thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory." The Catholics don't have that part in, and I would just feel
Here's what used to happen to me in school. Okay. I was the only Jew practically in the whole neighborhood. I was brought up in North Beach, which was primarily at the time when I first went to school an Italian neighborhood, which means a Catholic neighborhood. Okay, and at school they would bring somebody in like Father Larry from down at the church, right, to like give a prayer at the beginning of our school day. And they were kind of funny about it. They would go, "Oh God, please bless our parents and please bless our people and the this and the that and so on and so forth." And I'm going, okay, as a Jew, this is okay with me, And then at the very end, while I've got my head bowed because I don't want to not bow it because all the other kids are bowing their heads, and if I don't, they're going to go, "There's the Jew boy." Okay. He sneaks in Jesus' name we pray, amen. What? What? I mean, and that always, after that, it really bothered me whenever they would have any kind of prayer in school. Because the question, again, goes back to the thing we were talking about with the Ten Commandments. What prayer? From who? What religion? And
Didn't that get started in our public schools back in the 50s when they put "In God We Trust" on our money and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I'll tell you what we did when I first went to school. It was, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." What wasn't in there was "under God."
Under God.
Yep.
That was added.
Put that in.
Eisenhower put that in. You know why? Because of the Red Scare. Because the commies were godless people, and so they threw that in there, and it's never been removed.
In fact, the Communist Party started their meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. That's what Eisenhower found out, and that's why they put that undercut in, because they didn't like the communists reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, I didn't know that they had that at the beginning of their meetings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So anyway, it always bothered me, any kind of religion in schools, and eventually they did away with it, and that was fine. I mean, I think
Madeline
a kid.
Murray O'Hare.
Huh?
Madeline Murray O'Hare sued.
Yep.
That's what got the organized prayer out of school. People falsely say you can't pray in school. Anybody can pray anywhere, anytime. There's no law against you wherever you are praying individually.
Right.
You can,
so what you can't do is have an organized prayer forcing everybody in that classroom to pray.
Well, I never could figure out why, in order for me to pray or to be religious, I had to go to a church. I mean, can't you just, I mean, here in New York, one day I'm walking down the street. Here's a guy who's running a newsstand. He's Islamic, and he's on a prayer rug out on the sidewalk doing his ritual, right? Perfect example of you can do it anywhere, okay? So if you want to be religious, that's fine. If a kid wants to say a little prayer, he can say it quietly to himself, and nobody's going to mind that. I certainly wouldn't mind that. But it's when I'm forced to pray, like I was when I was going to Garfield School, and I'm just a little kid, and I I'm Jewish. I don't. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God damn it, jeez Almighty. You know that they snuck that one in every single time. So, you know, I mean, and then this governor of Louisiana has said, and I want the government to sue me over this one. I'm happy to go to court on this. You know what's going to happen? You're going to have the pants beaten off of you.
Yeah.
Because this thing isn't going to stand up even in the Supreme Court, you know. So, whatever. So,
We'll see.
Well, I did hear the Supreme Court did one good thing. Was it yesterday? They said that it's okay to take away the guns of somebody who has a domestic violence record.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know, even a stopwatch is right twice a day. You know what I'm saying?
The only person who voted against it was
Clarence Thomas.
Thomas.
Clarence Thomas. What a sleazebag he is. You know, boy, we made some bad choices back then. Josh, what do you think about this whole deal with prayer, with the Ten Commandments being posted in every room? And can you use a staple gun to put them up? I ask.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, I think it'll struggle in the courts, you know, for sure. I certainly think at the appeals court level, where it'll go first, you know, you'll probably see it struck pretty hard there, which the higher courts, usually take into consideration. They'll obviously look at what the lower courts said first. I think you'll see a fairly broad agreement, on its unconstitutional status. So I think that it'll struggle pretty hard, and even with, if they keep going with it, which they probably will, just to make their point. Although it wouldn't make its way to the Supreme Court till after the election anyway, so I don't even know if they really care about it after that. A lot of it's to make waves and things like that, But I mean, I don't think it would stand up there. I mean, the Chief Justice is certainly not someone that strikes me as open to that. He made some comments recently in that leaked audio tape that even backed that up and indicated it. For all the people that have had any issue with him, I mean, right there in a private moment, there he is basically not taking bait and expressing his neutrality on something like that.
Was this Roberts?
Yeah. And then, Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Barrett have both, sort of wandered off some of the paths that people thought they would take previously. Justice Gorsuch, very much the same. I talked to you about him, 5 or 6 weeks ago one night, where I was talking about some of the things that I went and heard him say, with how he views certain things. And, I would see a lot of opposition to it there too,
Mm-hmm.
Because and it's also something that I don't necessarily know is really that important to them and their judicial thinking. I mean, it's not really something that opens up a pathway for, different kinds of judicial review and philosophy and stuff like that. So I don't see it as anything like that. I mean,
well, the governor of Louisiana obviously sees it differently. He feels really confident that the new justices that Trump has gotten through are going to be on his side. So as I said, we'll see. I don't know.
I don't think they will be.
That's the whole reason why they're doing it now. They really see, and it goes back to a couple of years ago, the case of the football coach Prey with had the team pray in on the field, and so they're seeing an opening there where they can go even farther. So as I said, Josh, I hope you're right. I hope that these people are more rational than we're giving them credit for.
Yeah, and the football coach one, was a little bit complicated, and I listened to the arguments on that a while ago. And I mean, there was a lot of skepticism there. They basically got through that one with some pretty narrow, circumstances about, a lot of which I understood completely about whether it was required and things like that. So, but forcing people to pray in school, or to have these things as part of their daily look at and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's I just I see some of the government incursion there that constitutional conservatives like Justice Barrett and like Justice Kavanaugh, things that sometimes make I just think it makes them very nervous. I don't think they like it, so they have a little bit of libertarianism in their judicial way of thinking at times, and on some of these issues that's kind of how I think they view it is it's just not somewhere they believe the government has the right to do, because I think they understand that the government is whoever is in control of the government in many ways, and that can change, so I think that makes them nervous, because they understand that what's maybe they see as good for them today could in a decade from now could be totally different,
Yeah.
as things change.
Well, let's hope they're more libertarian than Christian nationalists, like other people are saying they are. So we'll see.
I mean, it's just
Well,
like
I don't know. I don't know how you can take the amendment to the Constitution that about the separation of church and state, and then allow that to happen. And secondly, I got this question: they're going to put up these 10 Commandments in every single classroom in grade school, high school, and college and universities. Okay. My question is, how long do you think some of these are going to stay up there before people rip them down?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Are they making a law against ripping them down?
Well, I don't think they'll. They
Well,
probably
that's
won't
the
even go up immediately, because the challenges will probably go to the court pretty quick, and
Yeah.
you'll probably get a stay on the execution of the law probably until it's settled. So, it'll probably take 18 months and then end up being like much to do about nothing that happened in reality, probably. So, like they may get a restraining order that says, you can't do anything yet till it's settled or whatever, So, yeah, I mean, that's, look, there's a big article in Politico, 4 or 5 days ago, about, Justice Barrett, already has done some things that the people who supported her appointment have, wrung their hands over, and, they're starting to regret it. I mean, so, I mean, that's what I'm saying, is it's not
Well,
always
I often said that,
simple
it
as
doesn't,
that.
you think that you're putting someone in on the Supreme Court and they're going to go a certain way and that's it. But we have a complete history of people who went in there as a conservative and came out a liberal
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and disappointed everybody who was on their, on what they perceived as being their side.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
They're deciding large cases of mega importance that they don't always see, in other areas that they worked in, prior to that. So, look, I think for the most part, the large majority of justices throughout history have understood what they were up against there. I mean, you obviously have exceptions throughout time. I mean, look, who serves on the Supreme Court is 9 people. I mean, they're people. I mean, people are inherently, some of them are just not good, or have stupid things that they believe, or, I mean, look, I mean, if you are at work or anywhere you see it, I mean, and it's 9 people. So it's difficult to find even 1 out of 9 at anything. It's difficult to even be in a room with any 9 Americans at one time where you're not standing there thinking at least one of them is a complete idiot. right? I mean, just think about the break room at your workplace or whatever, and you go in there and there's 8 other people. There's almost guaranteed to be one person. that you
Hey,
think,
listen, in this group,
"That
I'm
guy's
sure
an
every
idiot."
in this group, I think there are people here who feel there's at least
Right.
one person here who's an idiot, and it's probably me.
Okay, I'll be the idiot.
You be
So-
you be tonight's idiot.
But there's no. But
I'm an idiot.
The worst thing about it is they can be an idiot and there's no way to vote them out or not vote for them in next time.
Mhm. Well, and they're set up right, so that's where people have to really work hard and vote based on more than just one single issue that happens to be hot for that 5 minutes or whatever. And look, that's where people also have to remember that 90% of the stuff that comes from the court can be basically undone by the people's representatives, and they just don't do it. They just don't do it. And that's the fault of the representatives, but it's the fault of the people who don't get rid of those representatives. When it comes down to, rulings that you don't like about abortion or about IVF or about birth control or about student loans or whatever, the representatives of us, they can make federal laws that change that. Because so many of these rulings that come out, the court didn't say it was unconstitutional. They said the people that made the rule didn't have the power to do it under our Constitution, but if these folks over here do it, fair game. And those folks over there just don't do it. They just choose to not have our congressional members do anything, and then interest groups fight it out in the courts. Super funded by PACs and billionaires and all kinds of other things. Media that's not real media. It's more like an arm of a PAC or a biased media. On both sides and things like that. They've just decided that rather than do things through the political system, they'll do things through the judicial system. We're the ones that have given all this power to all these judges, not just in the Supreme Court.
Well, let's talk for a
courts
second.
everywhere.
Let's talk for a second. Oh, yes, Jeff.
I want to say that, we used to have 6 judge, and now we have 9.
Did we have 6 at one time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah, the number has changed over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the,
But anyway, the 9 really makes it more difficult to make it this an agreement between those 7 people.
Well, they're never going to agree. They're so polarized these days. There was a time that you could kind of think that the Supreme Court was literally voting on things based on interpreting the Constitution. Now, correct me on this, Josh, but isn't the job of the Supreme Court to decide on issues based on the Constitution?
Well, that's typically what cases are there for.
But it's not supposed to be their own opinion of what's right and wrong. That's not the option. The job here is to interpret the Constitution. Hey, Supreme Court, I've got a question about this. They want to have the 10 Commandments in a school. How do you rule on that? Well, let's take a look at the Constitution, and then they vote on it based on the Constitution. That's the way it used to be. That's not the way it is now.
No.
I don't know if it's not the way that it is now. I think there have been evolving, philosophies of judicial review over the last few decades, and I think that we also give them many, many, many more cases that used to be solved without going to them, that never went to them because it was taken care of by the legislature prior to that, and people went by that. Their representatives had made the laws, and when they didn't like it, they got different representatives or whatever. But we've moved into an era where we all have abdicated our responsibility and participation in that to the courts. Even Congress has done it. Congress has abdicated much of its power to the executive branch and to the judicial branch, even though the legislative branch was designed to be, the leading wing of, the tripartite government. I mean, and they're not leading at all. In fact, they just go wherever the wind takes them, and then let the other two branches figure it out.
Well, now we have down in Florida this judge. What's her name? Can't even remember.
Eileen Cannon.
Eileen Cannon, who even other judges on the bench in that state are asking her to, abdicate, get out of the job of handling this case, because they feel, number one, she's not experienced enough to do it, and secondly, she's dragging her feet on everything. She's trying to slow this process down so it's never going to take place while Trump is running for president. In any other court, this thing probably would have already gone to court and been adjudicated. But Eileen Cannon is this fool. I mean, she's horrible. She's terrible. And the judges down there, and by the way, those judges who want her to abdicate and to get out of the way are all conservative judges.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, she's a terrible judge. I mean, she probably has no business being there. I mean, but, our country elected someone like Trump, and along with that comes the consequences of the power that the executive is given. And, there used to be a philosophy that said, the executive would never appoint such an ass clown to such a position, because it's confirmable by the Senate, and they are the check. If you've got one person who is acting a fool, we've got 100 people over here who can look at it and say, no, that's not going to happen. You need to find someone better. We have judged this person is not worthy. Try again. But what you've got into is this, whatever the guy at the top says goes. The parties don't. They don't even push back within their own, parties.
Well, today she was spending the whole day hearing arguments that the Trump people were making about why the special prosecutor shouldn't be the special prosecutor, because he had not been okayed by the Senate. Which, I mean, by the way, in most cases never happens.
Yes, I mean, they're making ridiculous arguments.
And she's sitting there doing the slowest possible job of adjudicating this particular question, rather than just saying, hey, forget it. He's he's the special prosecutor, and that's it.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, one thing about the story is that I think it was a New York Times. I haven't read the article yet, but there were two particular judges that talked. I guess one was put on the court by George Bush, but they were arguing that the trial should be in a Miami courthouse with a more experienced judge. Supposedly, I don't know.
No, they said that she should.
The courthouse that she is miles away from Miami, and on top of that, does not have the facilities, not have the facilities for viewing or holding these classified documents.
Right.
Those facilities exist in courthouses in Miami, but because she refused to recuse herself, they actually had to build those facilities in her courthouse.
I don't think they built them yet, but they're going to. Yeah.
What's that?
I don't think they built them yet, but they have to build them now.
But they have to build them,
and the cost of that is prohibitive.
Yeah. So she's not only, dragging the case in favor of Trump, but she's costing the taxpayers a lot of money, needlessly.
Well, the thing is that these judges and so on, we always look to be the arbiter of situations. And now you can't count on them to be the arbiter of anything. They're simply giving out their personal opinion about something rather than looking at the legal ramifications. And
they're supposed to call balls and strikes.
That's right. That's right. and you know about that, don't you?
Well, but I don't know that we can put all of them in that, category. I think the vast majority of them we cannot. I think we have a few high-profile ones that have worked themselves into, situations where it's influencing, their judicial philosophy, and I think they're ruining the good name of the courts, through those actions. But we've also, like I said, though, we've also allowed it to evolve that way. I mean, we've taken issues that really 100% should be handled by the legislative branch, and rather than them doing anything about it, we're just having people bring lawsuits and things like that, and then we're just settling it that way. I mean, so
let me ask a newly minted father here, although hardly not newly minted, but about 7-8 years ago. Brian, how do you feel about, let's say in California they suddenly said they had to put the 10 Commandments in the classroom? How would you feel about that vis-a-vis Adrian?
Yeah, I don't care for it.
Yeah.
For me, I don't care. I don't care about religion. I don't care about sexuality. I don't care about all this stuff, right? I'll help, whatever. But when it's pushed upon you, that's where I have an issue. So,
Yeah.
So the whole, have it out there. I mean, my mom, when I was young, she knew that I was going to Presbyterian church, but I was going there really just to hang out with my friends, But she was always saying, any religion is fine for you, just, whatever you feel is fine. But to have it pushed upon you is where I don't really care about it.
It's funny, my parents never seemed to have, they knew I was going to school, and every day maybe Father Larry would come up from the church and give an invocation to the class, and they didn't seem that bothered by it. They didn't like it, but nobody made a big deal out of it.
So what happens when a 7-year-old or 6-year-old asks their parents, what's adultery?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's important too. The students,
they're like, they don't even know.
Well,
the students in class, if they ask the teacher, what is adultery?
No, that is something that grows in the forest and is boring.
It's when a man really likes a woman, and then the man likes another woman.
More than he likes the other woman. Yeah. Well,
and he's not Mormon. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, have you brought up Adrian with any religion, or do you haven't worried about that?
No, but she understands some of that, and I what I tell her is what I've always believed in. It's great for people to have faith. You have faith in something. Josh may have faith in the Cincinnati Bengals. But
no, you know what you should have.
Has faith in something, and if that gets them through the day, if that gets them onto their next level of a person, I believe that's very, very good. But like I said, I don't like when people are knocking at my door and come to me and say, "Oh, God saves," and I said, "Well, I was 11 years old when my mom passed away, so are you telling me God did that for a reason?" And they said, "Oh, yes." And I said, "Well, why would God take an only child, take his mother away from him? I mean, that makes no sense, And then they usually walk away after that. So,
yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I knew somebody when the Seventh-day Adventists came to his door, or the Mormons would come to his door.
Or Jehovah's Witnesses.
Jehovah's Witnesses would come to his door. He would simply say hello to them naked.
Yeah.
And they never came back.
Yeah. Actually, my adopted parents, Tad and Alice, they had a friend that did the same thing. When the whole Jehovah's Witness came to the door, they would take off their clothes and, "Oh, yeah, tell us more."
Well, I've had people call me up on the phone and do some kind of a religious thing, and then I would start yelling and screaming the most filthy, obscene words you can possibly imagine back into the phone, and they said, "My God, how can you do that?" I said, "Hey, you called me." Yeah, I mean, I've always been bothered by people trying to inflict their religion on me. And what's going on in Louisiana is inflicting your religion on me. And you're right. Which 10 commandments? The Catholic 10 commandments? The Baptist 10 commandments? The Jewish 10 commandments? I just read the Mormon 10 commandments. I mean, come on.
And how much is this going to cost? And can you imagine the printer wins the contract? I wonder what kind of kickbacks are going to be coming back to the governor.
Well, as I say, I wonder how many of them get ripped down.
They get ripped down, they have to be replaced, and that's more of expense. You know, they're very specific about how big they are, the lettering, the font, whatever. And I'm sure they've got their printer lined up, and he's lining, or that person or that company's lining their pockets to get that printing job.
That's right.
They swear that the no taxpayer dollars will be spent to put up these signs.
Well, where are they going to get the money?
Private contributions.
Do you think they're going to? Well, how expensive?
Are they going to be tax deductible contributions?
I don't know. The article I read said that they specifically said no taxpayer dollars are going to be used to do this.
But if they're tax deductible, then that's loss of tax revenue.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I saw that news story, they were showing it looked like a tombstone, it was like marble or something, and they had it all chiseled in, right? Yeah, Charlie, you see that? Yeah, and they were saying, oh, they're going to have the 10 Commandments, and well, are they going to use? They're going to put that? I mean, that's like very expensive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what the hell? We're kind of nuts in this country now. There are people who are doing this kind of thing just to piss other people off.
Yeah.
Hey, I woke up this morning and I decided I figured out a good way as the governor of Louisiana. Yes, I could do a lot of good works, but the first thing I want to do is piss people off by trying to make this law and get this law passed that we have to have the 10 Commandments in all the classrooms. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, they actually see themselves as saving the country. I mean, once again, they're Christian nationalists. And they believe that our secular path is the cause of all the problems that the country's having, and they're saving us from all those problems. They're going to solve all our problems, just like they did in The Handmaid's Tale,
Yeah. But
which, by the way, I read both of those books the past few months. Definitely read them. Yeah, Margaret Atwood. Well, what's The Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah,
Great.
read them before they're illegal.
Yeah, before they were legal. Yeah.
I mean, just amazing.
I think they've already been banned in Texas.
Have they really? Oh, in the schools? Yes.
Yeah, banned books lists. Yeah.
Wow. Jeez. What kind of world do we live in today? Well, a world in which I can play the theme. And there it is. It's been good having you all here tonight. This has been a good little discussion.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about printers.
We didn't even talk about what?
Printers.
Oh, HP printers. Yeah. Well, that's only because Alan isn't here tonight, Anyway, thank you, Josh. Appreciate the call. Love having you here. I call it a call. I probably shouldn't call it that. That's an old person saying, thanks for calling. Of course, our good friend Charlie Wallace. Thank you so much. Vernon Nunn, good to have you here. Tom Yamaguchi, always wonderful. Jeffrey Stein, we know you're here every night. We love having you here. And finally, Brian Neary. Why doesn't everybody give a big wave goodbye, and I'll give a big wave goodbye at you, okay? Good night, everybody. There they go. That's our citizen panel for tonight. There'll be another one starting right after we're through here with Amy Manuel, who takes your calls on Skype at Gabnet Live. I will see you again on Monday when we do that 4 o'clock show that goes out over Facebook called the Pop-Up Show. And then we'll be back here again on Wednesday, same time, same station in life. And in the meantime, as always, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Bye-bye.